So Mrs. May today launched a rebuke to Priti Patel in much the same way she rebuked Boris a couple of months ago. And she's very forceful and she's very clear. Today she was addressing the Rwanda proposal. Can I say, with respect to my right honourable friend, she says, from what I have seen, or from what I've heard and seen so far of this policy, I do not support the removal to Rwanda on the grounds of legality, practicality and efficacy. So she doesn't find it efficacious in any way. Do you remember there was a song a long time ago in the 1960s called Lily the Pink? She produced a medicinal compound, probably something like this, which was efficacious in every way. Well, Priti Patel clearly hasn't done that. And Mrs. May goes on. She says, I understand that those who will be removed will be young men, and that their families will not be. And then she said, then there's a point. She says, the Home Secretary is shaking her head, so obviously I've misunderstood the policy on that score. And she's quite right. The policy is extremely unclear. It's been sort of bundled together. I was going to say very fast, but one of my concerns about this policy is that it's taken up so much time that the civil servants haven't had time to do their real job, which is to deal with the refugees coming to our country from Ukraine. So then Mrs. May continues. She says, but if that's the case, she says, that families will not be broken up by the Home Secretary, and she says, now the Home Secretary is nodding, does she not believe, and where is her evidence that this will not simply lead to more trafficking of women and children? So if we're clearly going to target the young men under 40 and send them to Rwanda, and probably, even if they get processed in Rwanda, encourage them to stay in Rwanda. That didn't work very well for Israel, by the way. Then the people traffickers are simply going to target young women and children and make them pay and bring them over in the boats or whatever instead. So this policy, I mean, Mrs. May has put her finger on the problem, but then she should be able to do this because she worked for many, many years in the Home Office, and indeed, I mean, I don't want to salute Mrs. May and say that she's doing a fine job, because she is the person who was responsible for the Windrush crisis. She was responsible, and she left it to somebody else, I think Amber Rudd, to clear up and to resign. Because the whistle was blown on her watch, not on Mrs. May's watch. But it was Mrs. May's doing. Mrs. May destroyed the material. And Mrs. May oversaw the huge blossoming of bureaucracy in the Home Office, so much that it makes it impossible for Home Office civil servants to actually do their job, hence the tardiness, hence the delays and the completely unacceptable delays. There is only one solution to this problem, and it doesn't. It's not the sort of yah-booing that we get from a certain sort of Alex Belfield type of person on YouTube or wherever. There is only one solution, and that is to pump enough money into the Home Office to employ enough civil servants to clear the backlog and ensure that people who come to our shores are met with an efficient Home Office system. Because until that happens, we are just moving things round in a circle. We shouldn't be offloading our dirty linen to another country, whether that is Rwanda or whether that is France. This will not wash. We cannot put our dirty linen in somebody else's laundrette. We have to deal with it ourselves. And that means we have to hire people to do the job. Because Mrs. May has made that job top heavy. Mrs. May increased the bureaucracy. Mrs. May's fault. But she is quite right to target Priti Patel and call her to task. Priti Patel then, in response, of course, because she doesn't really know how to answer questions, she's not much better at this sort of job than Nadine Dorries. So faced with a serious question by a serious former Prime Minister who really does know what she's talking about, Priti Patel simply said that she was happy to meet Mrs. May to discuss this further. So presumably to try and hector Mrs. May. That's not going to go down terribly well because Mrs. May is a past master at that herself. She also pointed out that there was a memorandum of understanding about the legalities and the nature of the agreement with Rwanda in the library in the House of Commons. Well, actually, so much mud is slipping away about this. We want to see this. We want this information, and we would expect a competent minister to be able to ask questions under fire, particularly from her own side. This is again a complete disaster by Priti Patel, but are we surprised? Of course not. What is this all about, by the way? The Queen opens the new session of Parliament on the 10th of May. That is, I think, 2 days before Rishi Sunak's birthday, a sort of birthday present for Rishi. And that means about a week before that, Parliament will be closed, and any business which is lingering will simply be abandoned. It will then have to be repackaged and represented. So this whole thing, Nadine Dorries' latest proposals, Priti Patel's latest proposals, all this is talk. Because it can't go anywhere. Priti Patel's proposals are dangerous because she already thinks that there is a trial that is happening, the money has been committed. But that is as far as it's going to go. And I don't think that trial will get off the ground because of the legal challenges. That's it. This is noise to deflect. Deflect from what? Could there possibly be anything else going on in Parliament at the moment? Boris? Anything else going on in Parliament? Boris? Boris? Where's he hiding? Come on, Boris. Come on. Come on.